Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about the sign Aquarius. If your rising sign, which remember is the sign that's rising on the eastern horizon at your time of birth, which is called your ascendant. In Vedic astrology, we call it the Lagna. But if your Lagna rising sign ascendant is in Aquarius, what this means. Now, Aquarius is the sign that is the 11th sign, so it deals with groups, friends, loves people, organizations. Aquarius is the sign of humanity. And people with this rising sign love to take care of humanity. But Aquarius in Vedic astrology is ruled by Saturn, because Saturn, we use the old rulerships, such as Saturn rules Aquarius, Mars rules Scorpio, and Jupiter rules Pisces. We don't use the outer planets for rulers. So Saturn rules Aquarius, and I know that's kind of hard to stomach when you think about Aquarians being so unconventional for the most part. But when I start talking about the nakshatras that your ascendant may be in, it's going to make so much more sense. Saturn does rule Aquarius, so Aquarius can be very restrictive and it can be somewhat standoffish. People with an Aquarius rising do not like people to get into their private affairs. They can be detached. They can be a bit cold and reserved in many ways, but once they know someone and they're comfortable with them, they'll let them into their life. But this is how I see Aquarius as the rising sign, being ruled by Saturn. So Saturn can be very disciplined and focused, and I bet the Aquarius risings out there are very disciplined, focused, can be very organized with their thoughts, and highly intelligent. This is a very high-minded sign. It deals with a great deal of intelligence and far-reaching expansion with mind, open-mindedness. This is Aquarius, but it can be a bit stubborn. Remember, it is a fixed sign, so it is very fixed, and it can be very know-it-all at times. Why do I say that? Well, if you look into the mythology, going really deep, even into Greek mythology, Uranus was the sky god, and pretty much it became Uranus, and that's why this is the unconventional sky god that overlooks everyone, but all at the same time can know it all. And you know, for the most part, let me give them credit. Aquarians do know so much, but because they have this detached nature to them, kind of cold, indifferent in some ways, they're not going to spend a lot of time trying to convince people of what they know. So they are just really strong, and they just keep to themselves. They know. And actually, the old saying for Aquarius is, I know. So they're very sharp. They know way a lot more information than most people. So Saturn being the ruler, first let me go over the certain degrees of your ascendant. If your ascendant sits 0 degrees to 6 degrees 40 minutes, then this means that your ascendant degree sits in the nakshatra Dhanishta. And Dhanishta means the wealthiest one. It does deal a lot with great wealth. And Dhanishta is a very strong nakshatra. It's ruled by Mars, so it's very penetrating and strong and direct. And its symbol is a drum or a flute. And actually, you know, this is actually called the Star of Symphony. So people with this nakshatra can be very musical. But you know, these instruments, I've said this before, are empty, they're hollow. So sometimes with this nakshatra, people feel a little empty. They feel a little like something's unfulfilled or not whole or complete. So you're going to find that this is the way Dhanishta people are, but they have rhythm, they have style, they have movement, and actually they're very good at knowing when to be at a certain place at a certain time. They just have this sixth sense of rhythm, or should I say sixth sense of knowing when to be somewhere. They've got it. So this is part of their timing and rhythm. And the drum, the beat of life, they get it. They move on with it. And this is, as I said, this nakshatra being ruled by Mars, it's very direct. It's very strong. Sometimes they say, though, people with a strong Dhanishta in their chart could have marital problems. So they've got to really watch how they relate in order to prevent any problems with marriage or relationships. So the next nakshatra that could be rising if you have an Aquarius ascendant, between 6 degrees 40 minutes to 20 degrees of Aquarius. This is going to be Shatabhishak. And this nakshatra is extraordinary. This nakshatra can deal with the 100 healers. People with this nakshatra strong can be into healing. And many times they have a lot of people in their lives, sometimes it can even mean themselves, that have hard to cure diseases. And when I think about these hard to cure diseases, sometimes I really think about mental disease, because that is really hard to cure. And addictions, those type of diseases, sometimes they're surrounded by people with these type of problems. This actually is what gets them into the healing arts, because they're wondering how to heal it. And sometimes it is actually themselves that have these issues. So this is a very, very deep nakshatra, deals with this. And the other aspect of it is called the Sky Watcher. And you see people with this nakshatra strong are always interested in what's out in space. Astrology, astronomy, even, you know, aliens, things of that nature. They're fascinated. They want to know what's out in outer space. They want to know what's beyond this world. That's Shatabhishak, the Sky Watcher. Very, very intelligent nakshatra. And Shatabhishak is ruled by Rahu. So this makes it really intense and powerful. So look for this one. I find so many people that are into astrology, get readings, have this, either their moon, their rising in Shatabhishak, or a very important planet. Now the other nakshatra, if your ascendant rising signs in Aquarius, could be Purva Bhadrapada. That sits from 20 degrees to the end of the sign, 30 degrees. Purva Bhadrapada, it actually means the former happy feet, but that doesn't tell you a whole lot. But it is the front end of the funeral cot, they say. Uttara is the back end, but this is the front end. And this does deal with transformation and change. It's a very profound nakshatra, and part of it flanks into Pisces. So this nakshatra symbol is a man with two faces, and many say this is somebody who could see into the future as well as the past. This is someone that has a gift of prophecy. That's a very positive, visionary. Plus, the other aspect of this is sometimes these people with this nakshatra strong can sacrifice themselves for others. They're very giving, but it can be very sharp cutting nakshatra, because all at the same time, a man with two faces can be someone that's two-faced. You got to watch that. Be clear and transparent in all your dealings with people. So Purva Bhadrapada is ruled by Jupiter. So this can be very expansive and very helpful and bring opportunities. Now let's talk further on about the fact that Saturn is your chart ruler for everyone with this rising sign. And depending on where your Saturn sits in your chart is monumental, because remember, wherever your chart ruler is going to be your focus throughout your life. So looking at this, if you have Saturn in Aquarius in the first house, then this means you have a Sasha Yoga. Saturn in its own sign of rulership in an angular house. It makes Saturn extraordinary. And it means that everything about you is focus, discipline. Saturn is stamped over your forehead. That's who you are. So you're focused, you're disciplined. You love structure. You're incredibly responsible, and you take responsibility on for so many people. Remember, you're not responsible for everyone. Yes, you can help them, but don't be where it detracts and really takes all of drains your energy by always being the ultra mega responsible one for everyone. Watch that. Okay, so if you're Aquarius ascendant and you have your chart ruler Saturn in your second house, this means you have Saturn in the second house in Pisces. And really the second house deals with our early childhood experiences. It's going to mean that you've had some difficulty growing up. It couldn't have been all that easy. Saturn is restrictive, and maybe there wasn't like prosperity or gains. It also depends what other planets are there, of course. But generally, this is what this can mean. And sometimes you don't feel like you have the power to say what you want to say because Saturn restricts your speech. Maybe you have problems eating when you're younger, very particular about your food and restrictive of the things you eat. Also, you know, Saturn being in the second house deals with family, and family is not such a big warm togetherness. People can be separate and not so together while you were growing up with Saturn in the second house. Also, you need to watch your teeth. Your teeth, you could have issues or problems with your teeth with Saturn in the second, and especially in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is not a friendly sign to Aquarius ascendants. So moving on, if you have Saturn in the third house with Aquarius rising, Saturn being your chart ruler, that means you have Saturn in Aries. And Saturn's debilitated in Aries. So what's the third house? It deals with brothers and sisters. Either you don't have any, or the ones you have are very distant and you haven't gotten along with them very well, not for a long time. And even if you do get along with them, then that means these particular siblings have problems, have some issues, Saturn being there, especially in Aries, and probably problems or issues with getting along with other people. Aries can be very self-centered, and that could detract from your relationship from your siblings, or it could mean that they are in this way. Another thing is Saturn being in the third house in Aries. You had a hard time in school when you were young. Learning was very difficult. Maybe you were dyslexic and nobody knew, and they just thought, this kid can't learn, and you struggled. But once, probably through discipline and focus and overcoming that debilitation, you realized what it took to study and do well in school, but probably were miserable growing up and having problems in school, in education, early on, with your siblings, all of those things. Plus, maybe you don't get to travel the way you'd want to, or you don't like traveling so much. You want to stay put. Saturn in the third house. Okay. So let's say you have Aquarius rising and your Saturn sits in the fourth house. This means your Saturn's in Taurus. And Saturn does well in Taurus, but you know, Saturn in the fourth, you could have a very disciplined, focused mom that took care of you. I don't think she's going to be so cold and detached being in the sign of Taurus. But still, there was a lot of rules and regulations probably in the home. And your mom might have had a rough time with Saturn being in the fourth house, especially in Taurus, being fixed. Your mom was probably pretty stubborn in her own ways too, to say the least. The fourth house can deal with real estate. This is something to do with land. You love a lot. You've always wanted to live probably in the country where you have a lot of land. Saturn represents land, okay? So restrictive with family. Mother could be very stubborn, but still, home is going to be important to you, and finding a sense of security throughout your life. That's what you're searching for. Now, if your rising sign's Aquarius and your Saturn sits in the 5th house, this means that you have Saturn in Gemini. And Saturn in Gemini in the 5th house. 5th house is intelligence. You know, you love to learn. Maybe you learn very methodically, painstakingly, but you get it. You have great intelligence, and you could have very intelligent children that are very disciplined and focused and ultra mega responsible. Or maybe they have some issues or problems as well. But Saturn in the 5th house will really give you a firm grip on ideas, intelligence, and probably you're not like the artist per se, but you're a good, strong, working entrepreneur, and you like really working hard. And that's your creative efforts in creating businesses and things of that nature, hardcore things, building business. And I wouldn't say that you're the greatest with trading unless you've got other planets there. So be careful in the world of investing with trading. Okay, so if you have Aquarius rising, Saturn rules your ascendant, and it sits in your 6th house. This means you have Saturn in Cancer. And Saturn in Cancer in the 6th house, you do have to watch your digestion. The 6th house does deal with how we digest, and Cancer is a sign of the stomach. Saturn will cause upsets with the stomach, your digestion, but you are ultra mega responsible with work. Never dream of being late. Always got to be on time. You're responsible. You push yourself to the limit. But you don't find a lot of really cooperative people in the workplace, your coworkers or even your employees. They may be a little bit temperamental. Saturn in Cancer, hypersensitive. You got to work with them with kid gloves. It's not easy. And the other aspect of the 6th house is your health. And Saturn being there, you're very sensitive health-wise, and you've got to work harder at being healthy with Saturn in Cancer there. Remember, the stomach is the area of concern. And when it comes to pets, you know, you could have your problems with pets as well, maybe difficult ones at some point. I would watch the transits when you decide to adopt a pet. Okay, if you have Saturn in the 7th house, and you are an Aquarius rising, it means your Saturn sits in Leo. And boy, Saturn in the 7th house will give you long-lasting relationships. Generally, what it means is you'll stay in a relationship way past its due date, usually. But Saturn gets Digbala in the 7th house, so directional strength. Means relationships could last. But you got to be aware, you're going to get those demanding, high, you know, what am I trying to say? It's just somebody that is so demanding, high pressure and drama. That's what I'm trying to say. They are going to be a problem with Leo being the actor, and drama with Saturn. They could be that they have problems. You're supposed to work them all out. It's pressure. Saturn being in the 7th house, talking about your relationship, and you could be with somebody a bit older than yourself, with Saturn being in the 7th house in Leo. Leo means they want to be in charge, but they can be hardcore and not easy to deal with. So let's say you're Aquarius rising and your Saturn sits in the 8th house. This means your Saturn's in Virgo. And boy, are you detailed when it comes to research and analysis. You get the things done. You get to the core. You get to the bottom of things. You are going to dig. You need to learn to trust your intuition more, though, because Saturn means you don't trust it there. And you have good intuition. But Virgo is very scrutinizing and detailed, and your research is going to get to the core and the bottom of things. You will work hard to get answers. And you're pretty easy about being truthful and honest. You're not going to be telling people things that could get you into trouble, because you're very careful with Saturn in the 8th house. Yes, so if you are an Aquarius ascendant and your Saturn sits in the 9th house, then this means your Saturn sits in Libra. And you lucked out, because Libra is the sign of exaltation for Saturn. And the 9th house is the house of luck and fortune. So Saturn being there means you could have a very strong, intelligent, powerful father, but at the same time, very, very much trying to direct you by rules and regulations. This is going to be something that they're very into. And another thing is, Saturn being in the 9th house means spiritually, you're pretty cynical about religion, but you will be much more spiritual. And the thing that you love is bringing balance, bringing people together with peace, and being strong about what you believe, and not following any cults or messed up ways of thinking and beliefs, because Saturn being there, you're very scrutinizing, especially since it's exalted in the 9th house. And Saturn in the 9th house, you could be into law, be a lawyer, or be someone that gives very fair, good judgment, such as a very fair judge. That would be Saturn in Libra in the 9th house. May restrict your travel plans sometimes, or you could even be a professor, because that's going to be where your focus is. Now, if you have Saturn in the 10th house and you have an Aquarius rising, then this means you have Saturn in Scorpio. And this means work, career, you really push yourself. You really are disciplined and focused. You want to be the boss. Yes, with it being in Scorpio. And chances are you will be. Probably with Saturn. And Saturn in the 10th house sometimes can mean you work for the government, but not necessarily so much with it being in Scorpio. But you will be a leader. You are someone who gives the rules out, an organizer in many businesses. You are in control. So if you're Aquarius rising and you have Saturn in the 11th house, this means you have your Saturn in Sagittarius. And Saturn in Sagittarius means you're going to be very rule conscious, and you will put your rules out there towards all your friends, all the people you know, your groups, your organizations. You may be the oldest one in your family, just because Saturn could mean nobody's above you in the birth order. But if you have an older sibling, you're probably not that close. Or either you feel like they're very rule conscious and they're not easy to get along with. They're always trying to tell you what to do. And you feel like your friends are too. The 11th house is friends, but you don't have a ton of friends. You don't like to waste your time with a lot of superficial relationships. The friends you have are the old friends that you've known for a long, long time. And another thing is, you like to hang out with older people. You feel like you learn more when your friends are from an older crowd. So that's going to be where Saturn's in the 11th house, and you're always going to push hard to achieve your dreams and your ideals with Saturn here. Let's say you're an Aquarius rising and Saturn sits in the 12th house. This means you have Saturn in Capricorn. Capricorn rules Saturn. So this is a very strong placement in the 12th house. It's like you do best by cutting off any connections to the past. You're like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this person. No more. And you're able to let go of things very easily from the past. You don't let things bother you or eat you up or remember what you did to me 20 years ago, blah, 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 blah. No, you're like, I'm over it. I'm finished. I don't remember. I cut it off. You forgive and you forget. That's Saturn in the 12th. You might have some problems sleeping. It's hard for you to get to sleep, or maybe it's hard for you to wake up, just something around the area of sleep. And the 12th house also deals with bringing things to an end. You're good at organizing your time to realize when things are over, just like you do with relationships. When it's over, it's over. But Saturn in the 12th house can also mean karma, your past karma. You're here to alleviate and heal karma. Saturn being here could cause some issues or problems with children, though. Be aware of that. You can prevent things by being really there for your kids instead of being distant. So these are all the 12th house. 12th house can also deal with foreign lands and countries, and maybe you don't like traveling overseas as much as other people do. That could be a Saturn in the 12th house. Or maybe you do work with some very disciplined and focused people from other countries. That could be the result of Saturn being in the 12th house in Capricorn. So with that, I've covered all the signs that Saturn can be in when you have Saturn as your chart ruler with Aquarius ascendant. I hope this gave you so much information about yourself and how things are going to go and how you can better operate and navigate your life. So with that, remember, if you want to learn Vedic astrology, look up my university. It is stellar. All the new people you're going to meet, and you're going to love it. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com and go to my website, sign up for my free newsletter, get all of my predictions delivered to your email address once a week. Think about how great that is. So with that, one more thing, I have a new magazine. Check it out, Joni Patry's Astrology Insights. It's on my website, galacticcenter.org. Thank you.